participate in this with us. We will have a Facebook address, a Twitter, Instagram, and we want to put up your videos. And somebody needs to tell me to go, babe. I'm kind of used to that part. Me, I guess. I'm used to hearing the piano music. Hi. From the national, state, and local levels. Sorry. In addition, we'll talk a little bit about current events, and we want to hear.
You start now.
Oh. Great. It helps to have that too. Okay. Hello, this is What's Left. This program is an examination of social and political groups that identify as progressive or leftist. We want to identify local progressive groups and offer them the opportunity to discuss their agendas. We will examine policies, politicians, and legislation from the national, state, and local and levels. In addition, we'll talk a bit about current events, and we'll want to hear from you and other progressive groups and leftist groups. Soon we will be social media heavy, and we will want you to participate in this with us. We'll have a Facebook address, Twitter, Instagram, and we want to put your videos up. So if you're going to a rally or some other special event, send it to us. We want West Michigan to know that we are here. I am Martha Cooper. I have been involved in community activism. I regularly attend and encourage others to attend city commission meetings, your local political parties, explore other organizations and what they're up to. I've been involved in housing issues, voting rights issues, in the immigration struggle that they're going through right now. I believe that, especially how I got involved in doing this show, was I believe that social media and using the resources that we have, like GRTV, is extremely important. This is the way we reach out to educate each other, find out more information. If you don't use it, you lose it. So come on down and participate in our show. We're hoping to gear up on having a regular audience and having a mic so that they can comment. So tonight is our inaugural voyage. And let's see, so I'll be doing a little page flipping tonight. And many individuals do not know where they fall on the political spectrum. So let us here at What's Left help you make that decision. So you know you're on the left if you believe people should be paid a living wage and should only work 40 hours a week. You know you're on the left if you believe that health care is a right to be enjoyed by all. You know you're on the left if you believe in safe, affordable housing for all. You know you're on the left if minorities, whether they are based on race or ethnic origins, gender or sexual identifications based on age, older or younger, do not have full political rights, and that bothers you. You're on the left. Welcome. We will have more of those what is left on our next program. So what is left is a program. What's left is a program that wants to bring all of the progressive left groups together. And if the director could scan the audience that we do have here tonight, we need you here to engage and to participate in the discussion. So last week on Thursday, we had two interesting events in our city. The president came to GR for a campaign rally. So we'll talk about that in another show. We also had the Michigan Civil Rights Commission come to Grand Rapids to listen to residents of the city, specifically people of color, to speak about the conduct of our police department here. We know that there have been trust issues, but we've also had some pretty serious violations, I believe, of children's civil rights and people's civil rights who are under custody. I'd like to talk about that meeting and why we need to be at these meetings. What I did was I wanted to go to both, okay? But I just couldn't see that happening. So I chose to go to the commission, the Civil Rights Commission meeting, because he's blowing out of this town, okay? And he's a piece of trouble that we've had for a while, and once he's gone, we still got a lot of trouble. And that's the way I look at it. So I look at this, though, as this is really personal. This is happening to people in my community. I feel strongly about that. I'm very left, okay? I make no bones about it. I make no apologies. I didn't get here without a lot of education, so I hope that our show is really talking about things to educate people. What is left? What I think is that it's really important to show up. I think it's important to speak up. We see in our country so much income inequality, and there's just, we don't have like people in other countries. You see them in the streets. So what we're looking for is a way to speak up one at a time. If you go to the county commission, you go to the city commission, your voice can be heard, and it can make a difference. It's only going to make a difference if people stand up and get loud. So with that, I'd like to introduce our guest tonight. And we've got Michelle Truskowski from the Grand Rapids United Progressives. And they have evolved into something very new, which she'll be sharing with us. And then we have Joel Campbell. He is doing double duty tonight. He is from Industrial Workers of the World as a member. And then he is also covering the Democratic Socialists of America. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no
You'll
problem.
get double time. All right. And then we also have Kate Valaire, and she is with Institute for Global Education. It's a long-time social active organization in this city. They're still going strong and welcome others to participate in their space. And so you'll be telling us more about what Institute for Global Education is up to.
Thanks, Martha.
Yeah. So since we started with you, and we've been talking about what is progressive, so we say, and that was going to be, I told you, I was warning you, my first question, what is a progressive? We hear a lot about progressives and establishment or whatever, but more people are hearing that word. I'm not sure they know what it means.
Well, Martha, to me, progressive means that people are taken care of and all of their needs are met, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy, and it also means that our earth is taken care of and our environment is taken care of so that people have everything that they need. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, just that all their health care is met, all of their food and water is clean, and their environment is clean.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So it said something about it's evolving into something new. What are you guys up to?
Well, did you want to know from the start how it happened?
Yeah, no, fill us in.
Okay. Well, from the very...
Where were you and where are you now?
I was retired.
Right?
Yeah, that's how it started. I was retired, and I was coming down to volunteer for Bernie, and Vicki Danielson and Paula Bloom started this Grand Rapids for Bernie thing, and so I was down there volunteering, and then Paula was going to help Vicki, and then Deb Milhoff was going to help too. They were just going to help her get it started, and then Vicki got sick, and so I was asked to help take it over, and I didn't really want to do that. So
I've seen you in action.
I really didn't want to do that, and but we had all these volunteers and everything, and
Sure.
I didn't want to let it go by the wayside, and so I ended up doing that.
You rolled up your sleeves. Good.
Yeah. And Mary McLeod helped a lot in the beginning too. She helped us get it organized, and kudos to her, because really without her helping me get it going, we couldn't have done that. And so we kind of took it over, and you were there, and
We learned as we went.
oh, we did.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then nobody knew Bernie's name or anything, and so we started sign waving, mall walking with Bernie shirts on and all of that, and then we got to be really good friends, and we got to know each other and stuff, and grew to love each other, and then after the primary, we cried together, and then we decided to work on the platform, and so we've done a lot of really good things.
One of the things I wonder is, like, what was it about the candidacy of Bernie Sanders? What was it that brought you out, that made you take on something big? Okay.
I love that guy. I love that guy. From the 3 minutes I listened to, like 3 minutes with Bernie Sanders or something. It was just like all of his policies, like everything that he said, he cared about people. And the love just came out. It just came out.
Yeah, so so your organization was at that time about getting Bernie elected, and after that, what happened to the organization? Where did you go from there?
Then we just kind of flipped, and then we started doing things in the community. We started going to city commission meetings, and we started integrating with other progressive groups too, and going to their meetings. Like we went to DSA meetings, socialist alternative meetings. Some of our members were involved in the MEA, and all of the different things that we were doing. We were just trying to get into the community.
Right.
Kent
Right.
County meetings, that kind of thing.
So you also were starting to participate more in the local Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is very...
We do a lot, I forget.
Yes, exactly.
That's why I have this, just in case.
So you're trying to shift things.
Yes.
So you're basically just trying to push things forward
Yeah.
in the political realm.
Yep.
And
We do a lot. We go to Homes for All, we go to Healthy Homes. I mean, we do a lot.
yeah, you do.
We lobby. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many things I can't even remember them all.
Yeah.
That's why I have to look at my paper later.
Yeah.
I have a
I looked at all of
calendar.
it. I wasn't sure how much I retained.
I'm
but,
67 years old. I have a calendar. I have a schedule. It's just, it's bad.
Well, we're really glad you're the organizer type. Oh my gosh.
Oh, thanks,
Anyway,
Martha.
Yeah. Boy.
Let me check and see if I forgot
There
something.
you go. Welcome back. So.
Oh, and Bernie has organizational meetings coming up on the 27th of April.
All right.
But we don't know where yet.
Okay.
But we have a
So,
calendar.
I want to ask, and I want to get to everyone, and my goal is that not only do we get to know each other, but people can find us after the show. So I would love if you guys have a meeting time and a date, please shout it out. I'll come back to it and try to give you each a way for them to reach out to you, okay? And then I'm going to start with Democratic Socialists
Sure.
of America.
Yeah.
Because I understand that that's been around for a long time.
Mm-hmm. So, the Democratic Socialists of America has technically been around since the early 1980s. And for people who are familiar with the underground movements of the 60s, it was a merge between a lot of different factions into a new organization, which is DSA. And so you had figures like Cornel West and others that helped to guide this organization from the 1980s until the election of Donald Trump. And at that point, the DSA membership skyrocketed from about 2,000 people to 55,000 members nationwide.
I had thought that it was before that, even after the primary, but I could be wrong. So I know,
Yeah.
though, that they just basically just exploded in size.
Pretty much overnight too. And because of the increase in membership, there was a whole new way of looking and acting inside the organization. So,
How do you mean?
so for example, like before the explosion of membership, we didn't have caucuses or working groups or local chapters. Like
Okay.
throughout the country, some of the oldest chapters are in New York City, Detroit, Atlanta, but there was no chapter in Grand Rapids. There wasn't a chapter in Lansing or Ann Arbor.
So you almost had to develop an infrastructure for the nationwide organization.
Right, which is a project that we're still working on and which
Sure.
I'm involved in for the state, in coordinating and developing that infrastructure now, because we're pretty much figuring out as we go along, just because there's so much to do and there's so little time
Right.
to do it in.
Right. So, as an organization, so you're not a political party,
Right.
but you do endorse.
Yeah. So
There's, as I understand, is there a person that was endorsed in Seattle? So you've endorsed candidates.
yeah, I mean, even last night, 6 DSA endorsed candidates won alderman elections in the city of Chicago. So
Oh.
there are now 6.
I was wondering about
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so there are now 6 DSA endorsed socialists sitting on the Chicago City Council. So there are all over the country. There have been DSA endorsements from everything from city council to gubernatorial races.
Okay.
So there is a Socialist Alternative candidate, which is a fellow organization. They
Sure.
are an actual political party,
They
so
are,
they
yes.
do have
I do know.
a candidate that won an election in Seattle a few years back.
Yes, I remember that
And
too.
I'm blanking on her name.
Yeah, a woman. Yeah.
But yeah, we're not a political party.
Right.
The way that
Now, do you get involved in, like, you get involved in events, what kind of events do you guys do?
so some of
What are, especially,
Yeah.
I guess I just ask you, like, what would you say that the top 3, okay?
yeah, sure.
Just, I mean.
Yeah. I think what you'll see, our national convention is in August this year. So we'll reprioritize where we're going. But a large chunk of the DSA is involved in eco-socialism organizing,
Okay.
just because there aren't a whole lot of organizations out there that work on it. So essentially, eco-socialism is socialism with ecology, with the environment at the center of it, which we think is kind of crucial right now. And so eco-socialism, immigration justice, and healthcare justice are the top 3 things that the DSA broadly works on.
So when you say justice,
So
because
yeah,
because that's yeah, I'll just
yeah. So the way that we kind of define justice, broadly speaking, is it in the interest of the working class? Is it trying to be restorative? And are we actually trying to move beyond a system that incarcerates people, that polices people? There's a lot of like prison and police abolition work inside the DSA.
Okay.
And that kind of informs how we look at justice.
So, like, you would be very against, your organization would be very against any kind of incarceration for profit.
We stand against essentially all forms of incarceration, because when for-profit is a new mode, but
Yes.
yeah, but incarceration throughout history has always been at the behest of a ruling class trying to maintain the excesses of the working class or the underclasses. So we see incarceration as diminishing the potential for human beings to be restored to the community, to be rehabilitated. And a lot of critiques like that are informed by our feminism roots.
Okay. That's really interesting. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, because and then it also brings me to International Workers of the World,
Right.
because I had done just a little homework on that one, and I found it really interesting, some of it, I just see that racism keeps coming up,
Mm.
okay? And, you know, when I was reading that, they were one of the first unions that did not discriminate. And
Yeah.
even were discriminated against in the longshoremen's, when the, what was it, the American Federation?
Yeah.
Right, the AFL of the AFL-CIO
Yes.
came along, and so there was, you know, but it was like, so they attacked that union based on and used racism to do it
Yeah. So the Industrial Workers of the World has been around since
a long time.
a long time, so almost over 100 years, and it was particularly active in the early 1900s, and it's remained active since, but most people see the IWW as a relic of a bygone era, which is something that we're trying to get away from and remind people that the IWW is still around. In countries like New Zealand, Australia, they were at the forefront of organizing indigenous people in those communities against colonization. So from the beginning, it radically looks at the world and says the abolition of the wage system is the main goal of the organization, and that as long as the working class is fettered by racism, xenophobia, you know, sexism, all of these things, it will never be able to achieve true liberation. And so that from its beginning in Chicago, it has always fought against racism, against all of the forms of oppression that,
Yes,
yeah,
oppression, right.
that
Yeah.
that kind of work in different ways that aren't explicitly capitalist in nature. So racism and sexism aren't necessarily intertwined with capitalism, but in different states and around the world they do intersect, and the IWW just opposes all of those forms of oppression.
That's cool.
Yeah.
More questions about
Sure.
that, but I can't leave Kate hanging on the end. So Kate, tell me a little more to start. I know you've been a long time organization in Grand Rapids. You're not, as I understand, Institute for Global Education does more about issues than necessarily any politics or campaign stuff. Isn't that
Well,
correct?
we're a nonprofit corporation, so by law, we really can't do anything real overt to get some particular candidate elected or promote a party, but it's pretty relative, and we can. I think we since it's the Institute for Global Education, our main focus is education, but we want to educate ourselves and be part of what we see as really important social movements. And those first movements were historically, but I think most people know that during the 60s that I think as a result of earlier Gandhi and then Martin Luther King, strategies of nonviolence. And nonviolence is a way of life, and that is was the original basis for the kind of founding for the Institute for Global Education. And as we look through that kind of lens to the number one issue, I think, of the environment right now, and but I think it's really important for us to also be looking at militarization in our country, and I think we're not talking about that enough, and we're trying to make people aware of the damage that has been done, of course, by many countries, but we live here, so we're looking at the issue of making war, creating situations where war will come about, and worst of all, proliferation of nuclear weapons. There's only one country that's used nuclear weapons, that's the US. And we want other countries not to have nuclear weapons, but we're making some more, because we've
we think we need some more, or at least the president thinks so. And so those are some of our really important issues, but everything in social injustice really is connected, and social justice issues are and values are connected. And we like to see ways to promote those healthy, life-giving social values of equal rights and equality of wealth, which is, you know, unbelievably changing in this country right now, where fewer and fewer people have real wealth, and a great many people have much less. And the world, of course, is like that and becoming more unequal as well, even though there, in many places, people have a higher standard of living. And so I've worked in social justice, I think, since my late husband and I walked with Martin Luther King, and that was a long time ago. But we have worked with the Institute for Global Education for 37 years, and some people have worked almost that long with us, and we have many kinds of programs about these social issues, because there are really a large number of people that have concerns and at work to do positive things in our community and in the nation and in the world. And there are loads of things we can do every day, of contacting our elected officials, of demonstrating, of talking to friends and neighbors, and just the way that we lead our lives, and being respectful of human beings and communicating in a nonviolent way. And we just think that's really important. For instance, on Sunday, we had a person who is a mediator who actually has never been asked to speak in public before. And she mediates in rural areas, and for disputes that people have about property, about family issues. And there are many people that do this kind of work, and I'm afraid we don't hear about it. I think that we're really looking at trying to transform the media. And I mean, we're talking about it right here.
I know it's back that that IGE has done as you say, being involved in education, that you do a show.
Yes.
That is also on GRTV.
That's right.
That's right.
Right. IGE Talks.
IGE Talks,
Mm-hmm.
and
on YouTube as well.
Sure, and you've had many guests that have given talks, whether it's on the show or not. You know that you do, you know, have open nights where you'll have someone that has traveled to other countries to speak about an issue. So
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We're really concerned about the issues of immigration, and I'm a retired college teacher, and it's kind of frustrating since I don't have those captive audiences anymore for my sociology classes, but you know, we try and do what we can.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So, you know, I wanted to ask about, I remember that not too long ago you guys had the Poor People's Campaign had meetings on those, so basically it was like economic inequality is also an issue. And one of the things when we spoke that I saw in common, okay, was that, and I keep thinking about how over a long time narrative to call up hate and fear, to use racism to divide, to blame people for their poverty, okay? Things like this have shifted a narrative to the point where I believe that like, it's like they give things names like right to work, and it's union busting. Okay, so I just feel like that we have to answer back and we have to use our voice, okay, because we have to present the narrative if we want something different.
Right.
So when you say speaking to people one at a time, that works. And it's kind of like I have to learn, and really, you know, I grew up in a very white culture, and I have a narrative that I have to, so it's a constant education. I'm still learning, which is great, you know, so I'm excited about the show. I wanted to ask, have the international workers, or sorry, I keep saying that wrong.
That's all right.
The industrial workers of the world, have they had any big wins or accomplishments?
So prior to my personal joining, a few years back, there were campaigns for Starbucks workers and Jimmy John's workers, and there were wins there. The chapter we're kind of in a revitalization period right now. So currently we're working on establishing an online resource that's essentially a worker center.
Okay.
Because for most people, they don't really know what their rights are to begin with.
Oh, that's interesting.
And
Yes.
so
It's
rather
great
than rather than having them come to our meetings to learn necessarily, you know, I worked in food service for almost my whole working career. You know, I didn't have the chance to go to a meeting, so being able to hop onto a website was really crucial. So we're looking at establishing an online resource like that right now
That's great.
to revitalize and start work again.
So we talked about Starbucks worker and fast food workers. Who can join International Workers of the World? It's not like the AFL-CIO. You work in a
Right.
car factory and you join the union or whatever shop it is.
Right.
This is it's a union fights for workers' rights.
So the motto of the IWW is it's one big union. So we seek to organize all workers.
Okay.
And I mean, the reason that more bureaucratic unions, like my parents were part of the Michigan Education Association and AFL-CIO as well.
Sure.
And those unions kind of like will capitulate to the demands of businesses. So the incorporation of things like no strike clauses. And what sets the IWW apart from a bureaucratic union like that is that we don't seek to enter into contracts with companies. We seek to, by organizing the workers, maintain the power of the strike, of withholding anything at any time to achieve our demands, rather than negotiating a contract that lasts, 5 years, 2
Okay,
years.
right.
So that's the main difference.
Okay, so it's very grassroots.
It's very grassroots.
I mean, when you're talking about in the local. Okay.
Yeah. There's a current campaign up in the Pacific Northwest, I'm forgetting the actual city, where the IWW has been organizing Burgerville workers, which is a fast food chain over there. And this is the tactic that they're employing, is not entering into a contract plea with Burgerville, the company, but withholding labor and demonstrating everything like that to achieve their demands. And it's been rather successful, honestly, and it's a model that we hope to emulate here. But it starts with workers coming to a consciousness about who they are in the capitalist system.
And that they, as in solidarity, have something to say about that.
Yeah, and
Okay.
that's why IWW seeks to organize the whole of the working class, is that by organizing, you can organize things like wildcat strikes, solidarity strikes, things like that, where you're withholding labor from other facets of the economy to further workers that are currently in struggle.
Okay.
Because like Martha said, there's a lot of hate and fear, right? And so you have to start there with that, because they're afraid of their jobs, right?
Yes, that was exactly what I
Right.
meant about fear. I mean, if you've had 3 recessions, okay? One really great way to keep wages low is everybody feels like they won't be able to get a job.
Yeah.
Right.
So, hang on to the one you have.
Whatever it
Don't
is.
demand anything. Don't stand up. Don't make a squeaky noise. So I think that people, I just wonder how scared and upset do people have to get before they actually get over the fear and get brave?
Yeah.
Well, a
Like,
caller,
brave.
a caller from the state of Washington gives your discussion 3 thumbs up.
Oh, well, really? We have been warned all the way from Washington. Right on, sister or sir. All right, that's very encouraging. So I think that we've got a really interesting panel. We've got a new, talking about back to the progressives, okay, I know that you've been doing some sign waving for Medicare for All,
Yes.
okay? So this is like not just campaign, but the campaign is medical for all. We don't care how we get it, we just better get it.
We better get it.
Okay, regardless of who gets elected, that's a non-negotiable.
That's right. We keep
Okay.
pushing.
One of the things we're looking forward to, the producer and I, we're talking about having more discussion about all of the different Medicare for all. There's all these different names for things now, okay? And so we'd like to get clear on what those are. So we'll be talking about that too.
Yep. It's really important.
Yeah. And
Watch your candidates.
Right.
Bernie Sanders.
Yes, well, yeah.
My shirt.
That's it. And on just to be transparent, I'm definitely a Bernie Sanders fan myself.
Love you, Martha.
I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why. We've got a little discussion time here. That's what it's all about. I'm going to talk about the policies because it's not Bernie Sanders. It's really about
Us.
my life informed me of things that I know other people deal with. It informed me that during those 3 recessions, I was a single parent. All right. I didn't graduate with a degree because I was very low income, and one crisis was enough. The cuts that were being made were coming out of Reagan years when I was in college. I started very early seeing how politics affected me and my child. My child was diagnosed with a learning disability. This was when it was mandated, special education, but not paid for. And that made every difference in my son's education and his opportunities coming out of that education. I saw budget cuts to schools, all right? I received threats from local governments and state governments. If your kids skip school, we'll take away your food stamps. While I'm working 40 hours a week and getting food stamps. My father raised 6 kids and never paid daycare. In my generation, we had 3 recessions. I know that oppression is oppression. Regardless of the world around me, I had a sense of justice probably early, looking around saying, this makes no sense as a kid, and then growing up to find out how much injustice is in my neighborhood, in my schools, and in my city, all right? The last 10 years have been horrible to see people being mowed down in my country, people being chased down for nothing more than wanting to have a life, okay? So now we're at an extreme, and I am going to stand up and stay active. I encourage everyone, whatever your particular issue is, stand up, say something, get involved. Maybe we'll see, more people standing up about these issues. I think it's really important to vote for somebody that's about the issues rather than about their career, because we really can't handle a whole bunch more talk, okay?
That's right.
I've been out talking about housing because I was homeless when they crashed the housing market. And then soon after that, I was a painter and a decorator. The first job I ever did was under my own shingle, and I actually made a living, okay? And gave up their food stamps and hired somebody. Politics is personal. All right? It's personal. I don't know you,
Yeah.
but I don't want you cold.
Right.
All right?
I don't either.
And I don't know her, but I don't want her wrecked because she has a health care need. I don't want you to not have a place to live where you can't have your family come over and see you when they have a grandchild. So this is real stuff. You know, politics is personal and it matters. People don't want to look because it's hard and it's scary, but it doesn't get less hard and scary if we don't do something. So.
And there's some great people that are doing
Oh,
this work.
yes.
Look at us.
You know, what? Yeah, I mean, I feel like I in my activism, I really am around some of the finest people.
They're the
not
best
doing
people.
it just for themselves. They're doing it because they care about other people.
I know, and some of
That's
us are old.
something we need to amplify, and I hope that this show does some of that.
And some of us are old and we do it.
And we have an audience member.
Question. Okay, this is for Katie. Can you tell us how IGE is engaged with climate change?
Oh, thanks for the question. We have had some speakers, and we just had a program about a month ago for IGE Talks that was about climate change and the lack of recognition on the part of the government and all. And we, of course, are not, you know, overtly political, but we certainly tell people how they can act and try to make a difference and put active pressure on elected officials, which is one of the really important things we need to do. And also get people to demonstrations, and there have been some, and we attend.
These are things I forgot. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi. I'd like to ask Joel, please, about the IWW and its work with organizing prison workers.
Sure. For those who aren't aware, this past August, for about a 2-week period, the Industrial Workers of the World, through their Prison Abolition Commission, which is called IWOC, had organized a nationwide prison strike. For most people, they aren't familiar with the labor that is done in prisons. For people, say, the state of Michigan, a lot of that will come down to state industries, so things like making uniforms or traffic signs or things like that, things that aren't really relegated to the private market are done by prisoners in the state of Michigan. Across the country, though, prisoners work in every industry. If you drink Starbucks, your cup was made most likely by a prisoner. If you're eating certain types of produce, it was probably picked by prisoners. Yeah. Then, like most infamously, there's a prison called Angola, which was a former plantation, and the prisoners still literally pick cotton on that prison in the most obscene way possible. So the IWW organized, since the prisoners are workers themselves, they organized the prisoners to go on strike to withhold labor, and most have been met with fierce retribution. The prisons are black holes. The people just disappear into them. If you've ever seen interrogation videos inside prisons, they're awful. But most people just don't really know what happens inside prisons, so the IWW is particularly interested and concerned with the treatment of prisoners and their working conditions, and see the ending prison work as a critical function to the abolition of prison, because the function of prison in our society largely depends on the products and the labor that's coming out of prisons right now. There's an entire industry that's set up by the federal government and regulated by different states to work and essentially capture people for profit. I mean, that's what groups like Geo Group and others do. They demand a certain amount of prisoners from a state, from a locale.
Can I ask you to speak?
Sure.
Geo, I know a lot of people that we
Geo
speak to.
Group.
Geo.
Yeah.
What is that?
So Geo Group is
It's a company.
Is one
Corporation.
Of yeah. It's one of the corporations that is engaged in private prison contracts. I think almost every immigrant detention center on the southern border of the U.S. is a GEO group facility. So what happens is, instead of the system is essentially privatized. So taxpayers pay for GEO Group to run and operate the facility. And GEO Group in particular has a horrendous human rights record, from riots in New Zealand and Australia to the United States and really all over the world. They operate worldwide. Their stock is traded publicly on the New York Stock Exchange. You can buy it if you feel really cruel. But they traffic in human labor. And part of that is the profit that they reap from state contracts, and the other part is that they then contract labor out for companies like Starbucks, like Apple, like pick your company.
So I do know that it's very difficult to get any kind of reasonable health care, okay, in prison. And I wonder, so in other words, it's profit driven.
Yeah.
These folks are going to be cut back on as far as any kind of human needs.
Yeah. I mean, we'll take a local example.
Please.
So I went to school at Grand Valley, so our food company was Aramark, and Aramark is
Yes, I
awarded.
remember that.
Yes, Aramark is awarded many prison contracts, including the one in Kent County. So the Kent County prison had its food essentially made by Aramark to save on costs, so that Aramark could reap the most out of that contract. They were using expired food in Kent County. So prisoners were finding maggots and other really awful things in their food because Aramark was trying to save money on their end of the deal, so they could just take more and pocket more and add more to the bottom line. And Aramark is not alone. Prison companies like Aramark and others have these kinds of contracts where they might do transportation or food or something, and they're always just trying to get to that bottom line. And yeah, healthcare.
Sure. So
Healthcare is
anywhere
another.
they can skimp on a buck.
Yeah.
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 They're not much interested in their health.
No.
Okay.
They'll let people
they'll
get sick
just
and die.
replace you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess for me, the situation with for-profit prisons is, how will we stop criminalizing people if there's profit to be made from it?
Right. I
I
mean,
mean, the drug war is one way, but there's more than just that. We've seen kids get criminalized for living in the wrong neighborhood and walking
Right.
in the street. So,
yeah.
Or
And that is a
killed.
common problem in the city.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I appreciate that. I wanted to kind of get back to, she slipped me some notes. And so you mentioned.
I forgot a few
yeah,
things.
Yeah, right, because these are important things.
I know.
Because we want to invite other groups to speak to your group. Isn't that right?
That's right.
So we do, just recently, you had some very young girls from, I almost I'd say young women.
Yes.
Because I believe they're teenagers now.
Yes.
And they were from the Sunshine
Organization? Sunshine Green New Deal, yes.
Okay.
Sunrise.
Sunrise Movement.
Thank you very much. Okay. It's from
Thanks, Victoria.
From the Sunrise Movement. This is why we need an audience, folks. Really get here.
We need tutors out there.
Right? Yeah. That's right. I'll take all the help I can get, really. Anyway, but I know that you've had speakers to your group, and you've also done fundraisers, watch parties.
Yep, we do all of that for
Right.
candidates that are running for office. We actually have candidates ask for our endorsement. That's how
Well,
important.
there we go.
That's how important we are.
That's as it should be.
We started out as a little teeny group, and then we grew.
That's how it's supposed to go.
Forgot
and,
to say
and we
that.
are trying to grow. We are unabashedly trying to grow. The people power.
Yes.
Because if we want a government that's going to be run by people, and we want companies that give a damn about people.
And we register voters too. We
Right
do
on.
that.
And I actually saw you out getting out the vote with the Philip Randolph. So you do, as an organization, work in tandem with
Absolutely.
other organizations.
That's the only way to do that, because
true,
we all have this dedication to.
Yeah.
And we need to know that there are loads and loads of other people doing similar work. And I do think that we need to work more closely so we don't replicate, constantly the same kind of things, over and over, and that we do the innovative things to pull people in that maybe aren't comfortable in one organization would be very comfortable in another.
I was thinking too.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah, I like the idea of this show because I've been going around and saying, we need to make allies out of each other. Okay, the Cosecha movement. I'm an ally. I show up. I will do whatever soldiering I can do. This is their movement. This is their fight for dignity, respect, and permanent protection. For this moment, I will put a pitch out there because it's coming up really fast. If you give a dang about the immigration issue and you want dignity, respect, and permanent protection, please show up May 1st. I believe they leave from Roosevelt Parks. I'm not sure what the time. Cosecha GR. 11. So the march starts at 11. Noon it starts. So come and be social at 11. Anyway, so definitely stand with our neighbors here. We've really, I've had a hard time watching what they're going through. We've had ICE taking and separating people. Most of our media, we think that it's happening at the border. It's happening right here in our city. Brandon is an activist, and it hurts my heart to know that he was out there speaking up for him, his community, and he was a DACA recipient, and of course they canceled that. So he is currently in custody, and they would not give him bond. So these are real people, and they're standing up for their community. We need to stand up for them. So please come on out May 1st and stand with the immigrant community. They are a huge contribution, and don't believe the as I say, they've been shifting the narrative, and it's up to us to show up and shift it back, So,
Martha, I just came back from Mexico.
Okay.
I was there because my daughter and my son-in-law, who I adore, and it's Mexican, and I always have to say, in this country, I always have to say he's an American citizen, but he and my daughter prefer to live in Mexico. And I think it's a joke because to demonize people, this whole country, the country of Mexico, and then, Central America, and, largely people that speak Spanish, I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Well, and they're invaded by us. I mean, we invade them.
That's
we
right.
retire and move
That's
to
right.
Mexico.
What are these people from Central America?
And they're not mad.
And where do weapons, drug lords get weapons when they sell us some drugs. And if there wasn't a demand here, then that wouldn't be going on. And we've known that for a long time.
It's like that with a lot of countries.
Yeah, and it's just ludicrous. Where are the people in this country supporting this kind of rhetoric, not just the rhetoric, but the actions against immigrant people?
There's a problem with the media.
Oh, I absolutely, that we really need to be activists, and I don't just mean the conservative media.
No,
I mean the
all of it.
national
Yes.
All
media,
of it.
because I think that we've also, and I know this is,
Supports capitalism.
we become fascinated with these unbelievable things the president says, and it gets a lot of publicity. I think we need to ignore it, and I think that we need to hear about real news.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. Like six corporations own almost all of our media.
I mean, you're never going to get an unbiased media source when GE also makes nuclear warheads.
Yeah.
And
Of
the
course.
truth is,
Yeah.
it's like everybody, let's not blame just the media because they were given that ticket by a politician.
Bill Clinton.
Thank you. So, we will be having ongoing discussions. And, we're talking right now. That is a great discussion because we keep hearing, I'm out there trying to register voters and get them to show up, and they're like, oh, both parties are the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here you are, though, in your organization, trying to make sure that doesn't stay the same.
Right. Yeah.
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 And we really need to change education, and I mean formal and informal, but you know, pushing the testing and not allowing us teachers to speak about all these issues in school. I and other teachers are appalled
Yeah,
at the
your
lack
freedom of speech is not there
No.
when you're a teacher.
But and students, I mean, I remember when I first started teaching, people that went to the 10th grade know more than people that have finished college now, because they had some, it was limited, it excluded people of color and women, but there were a few facts that people remembered. You know, there was a Second World War, for instance, but
Yeah, I think that we've always had a very skewed educational
Oh,
system.
that's very
because
true.
what are we teaching
it's
when we
worse.
are teaching?
it's worse now.
So I think that there's just really so many issues. I think about when I look at what's going on with the Democratic Socialists, I start hearing the word socialism an
Yeah.
awful lot more.
Yeah.
When I did a little more of the homework on the industrial workers of the world, I'm hearing, oh, they weren't signing on to capitalism.
I mean,
Back in the day, it was
Yeah.
kind of like,
well, I think that for a lot of people, socialism is a dirty word because of the Cold War, and there's a lot of hangover about it.
That's really true.
And I think that, but once you like drill down into American socialism, it's I mean, the phrase that we sometimes use is it's as American as apple pie. I mean, people like Helen Keller, Jack London, all these people were socialists.
actually in Maryland Monroe,
Yeah.
I heard.
Arthur Miller, I mean, these, like,
Right.
they were, I mean, there was a visceral process of eliminating them and any mention of a socialist background.
Yeah.
And so part of the work that we're doing now is just trying to educate people on what socialism is and what it can look
So
like.
that does not mean you don't have a vote.
Right,
Okay,
right.
like really, people don't need to know that this is not, yeah.
It's not Stalinism. We're not
Okay, we have to be wrapping it up. We're having so much fun talking, we could do it for another hour. But there is a very important thing I need to tell you. So May 15th, it is the third Wednesday in May, and we're going to be having our second What's Left show. I'm not sure who's going to be here, but we are begging for an audience. Bring yourselves, bring a friend, bring your thoughts about things, bring your concerns. And definitely not just show up here, show up to those meetings that we're having, show up to the city commission. You don't know how much they don't say in the media. I tell you what, bring a friend. It's sometimes a little hard on the stomach. But yeah, because of what's been going on with
It's true.
with the housing, and you know, they say, oh, we have jobs, but you have to work too to be able to rent a one-bedroom. We've got displacement issues. You know, really, education is so important. While you're talking, I'm sitting here thinking Michigan has gotten to the point where we're last in funding. I can't believe it. I left Kentucky. So, anyway, bring your voice, show up, ask questions from the audience. Thanks so much for being with us here today. And if you would like to let folks know how to contact you, Kate, how will people find
Institute for Global Education, the telephone numbers for 616-454-1642. And we have a Facebook page and a website online.
And how about you, Michelle? How will people get in touch with
Whatever I have right now.
Grand Rapids United Progressives, thank you.
Yeah. We have a Facebook page. It's Grand Rapids Progressives for Bernie right now. That's our Facebook page. And you can just send us a message. Thank you.
And how about you?
So we have Facebook pages for the DSA and IWW. They're both their own names, so Grand Rapids IWW and Grand Rapids DSA.
Is that how it's written? DSA? Okay,
DSA,
great,
yep.
super.
Every Thursday, we're having eco-socialist meetings at 671 Davis Street Northwest. Anyone is welcome to come. It starts at 6:30, food is provided, and we just talk about socialism and what we're doing going forward.
Okay. We do post our shows on the CTV Facebook page. I'm not sure, can anybody shout me if it's just CTV or CTV Society?
It's streaming. No, streaming.
It's streaming.
Oh, right.
Okay. So if there's a way you'd like to get in touch with us, let us know if you'd like to be on the show or bring people to be in the audience.
Spell
That
it.
would be great.
Spell it.
I can't spell it. I haven't gotten the information. I asked. So,
I think it's S.E.E.
yeah.
TV.
Yeah, it is S.E.E. TV. Facebook page, and I'm sure it'll sort that out for you if you do a search. So, thanks for being on the
Yeah.
in the discussion tonight.
Thanks for
Good
having us.